You believe you know who you are. You say your name with certainty. You describe your personality as if it is permanent. You defend your habits as if they are chosen. But what if the person you call me is simply a construction? From the moment you entered this world, your nervous system was not searching for truth. It was searching for safety. Safety in faces, safety in tone, safety in approval. When you smiled and someone smiled back, your brain learned connection. When you cried and someone delayed responding, your body learned anxiety. When you were praised for being calm, you learned calm equals love. When you were criticized for being loud, you learned silence equals protection. You did not consciously design your personality. You adapted. You adjusted your tone, your reactions, your emotional expressions. Not because you were fake, but because you were intelligent enough to survive. Psychiatrist Carl Jung describes something called the persona, a social mask that helps us function in the world. It is not evil. It is not dishonest. It is protective. The problem is not that we wear the mask. The problem is that we forget we are wearing it. Over time, the adaptive self becomes the official self. The survival strategy becomes the personality trait. You say, I am just an anxious person. But anxiety may have once been vigilance. You say, I am just emotionally distant. But distance may have once prevented rejection. You say, I am a people pleaser. But pleasing may have once guaranteed love. Inside your mind lives a narrator. It explains your behavior, justifies your reactions, edits your memories. Neuroscience suggests that memory is not a recording device. It is a reconstruction process. Each time you recall an event, you subtly rewrite it. And each rewrite strengthens the identity you already believe. If you believe you are unlucky, your brain highlights failure. If you believe you are unlovable, your brain magnifies rejection. If you believe you are strong, your brain edits out vulnerability. The mind does not prioritize accuracy, it prioritizes consistency. Research influenced by psychologists like Daniel Kahneman demonstrates how deeply biased our perception truly is. We do not experience reality as it is. We experience reality as filtered through narrative. That narrative protects identity at all costs. Identity feels stable, but it is fluid. It feels solid, but it is responsive. Your preferences, your political beliefs, your relationship patterns, even your ambitions, are shaped by environment, repetition, and emotional memory. The unsettling truth is this. Much of what you call yourself was assembled before you were old enough to question it. Your fears were inherited. Your confidence was conditioned. Your triggers were programmed. And yet, the illusion feels real because the brain rewards familiarity. Even if that familiarity limits you, and if it traps you, if it keeps you repeating the same relational patterns over and over again. Think about the roles you play: the strong one, misunderstood one, the independent one, the caretaker, the rebel. Roles are efficient. They reduce uncertainty. They also reduce possibility. When someone challenges your identity, your nervous system reacts as if you are being threatened. Because identity is not just a story, it is a stability mechanism. To question who you are feels like psychological ground disappearing beneath your feet. But what if the ground was never solid to begin with? What if you are not a fixed character, but a dynamic process? A constantly updating system shaped by awareness. The illusion is not that you exist. The illusion is that you are finished. In the moment you begin observing your patterns instead of defending them, something shifts. You create distance between awareness and identity. You realize you are not your anxiety. You are the one noticing anxiety. You are not your anger. You are the one witnessing anger. That separation is freedom, because if identity was constructed, it can be reconstructed. If personality was shaped, it can be reshaped. If survival once defined you, consciousness can redefine you. You are not the mask. You are the awareness behind it, and awareness is not limited. Every time you look around, the world becomes a mirror. And in that mirror, you search for validation, approval, recognition, even envy. You compare yourself to strangers, celebrities on a screen, friends who post only their highlight reels, and your mind whispers, "Am I enough?" That whisper grows louder. It shapes your decisions. It dictates your priorities. It controls your reactions. You adjust your words. your behavior, your very emotions. The ego thrives in comparison. It measures self-worth not by who you are, but by who you appear to be, what you accomplish, what you acquire, who admires you, who notices you. Every like on social media, every compliment, every slight becomes a pulse, a heartbeat, a measure of survival. And the more you depend on it, the more your true self fades. You no longer act freely. You act strategically. You preempt judgment. You predict reactions. You craft a version of yourself designed to minimize rejection. And yet, every time the mirror breaks, a comment that stings, a friend who ignores you, a job opportunity that passes, you feel exposed. You feel fragile. You feel invisible. The ego tells you to protect, to defend, to perform. But performance is exhausting. Pretending to be a version of yourself that the world approves of. And when no one is watching, who are you then? The problem is not the mirror. The problem is forgetting that the reflection is not reality. It is a story, one your mind repeats, rewrites, and reinforces every day. Psychologists describe this as the socialized self. It is molded by norms, expectations, family, culture. It is adaptive, protective, necessary. Yet it obscures the raw, unfiltered essence of being. Every act of comparison, every moment of envy, every silent judgment you feel, reinforces a pattern, a cage. And in that cage, you feel both powerful and powerless. Feel important, yet invisible. Feel competent, yet flawed. Because the ego measures life through the lens of others, it is not interested in your truth. It is only interested in survival, in status, in perceived value. And social media, culture, peer pressure amplify it until you are addicted to the reflection, addicted to validation. But what is validation if it is always borrowed, always conditional, always fleeting? The deeper you chase it, the more you lose connection with yourself, the more you perform, the less you experience authenticity. And yet, this cycle feels normal, natural, inevitable. Because survival instincts run deep. Because identity is tied to acceptance. Because the mind confuses social calibration with self-worth. When you start observing, the pattern begins to unravel. You notice the compulsive comparisons. You notice the constant self-editing. You notice how your emotions are borrowed from the mirror. And slowly, the awareness grows that the self you've been defending may not be your own. It is a construct, a strategy, performance. And awareness is the first step toward reclaiming what is real, toward noticing the raw, unfiltered experience, toward separating the observer from the observed. Beneath the persona, beneath the social mask, there is another force, the subconscious mind. It is silent, relentless, invisible, shaping your choices before you even realize them. It stores memories, reactions, habits. It calculates risk. It predicts reward. It protects you. Every childhood lesson, every word you absorbed, every glance of approval or disapproval has been recorded, etched into the architecture of your mind. You think you choose freely, but the subconscious nudges, pulls, and sometimes hijacks your decisions. You pick a career not entirely of your own design. You pursue relationships shaped by patterns inherited long ago. You avoid risks, or seek thrills, all guided by invisible wiring. Trauma leaves fingerprints on the mind. It's not always visible, but profoundly present. Every rejection, every fear, every moment of shame strengthens patterns, reinforces the narrative of who you are, and slowly, the collapse begins. You realize the person you trusted as yourself is contingent, reactive, borrowed. You panic. You question every action, every thought, every feeling, and that panic is familiar. It is the sound of identity fracturing. The ego resists. It wants coherence. It wants a story that makes sense. But the subconscious has its own logic. Ancient, efficient, protective. Patterns repeat. Cycles recur. Behaviors replay. Relationships reflect old wounds. Failures mirror childhood fears. Successes are filtered through self-doubt. Yet this collapse, though terrifying, is also liberating. It is the first crack in the illusion. It's the first moment when awareness can step in. It's the first opportunity to reclaim agency. Every thought that once felt automatic can now be observed. Every reaction that once felt inevitable can now be questioned. Every story you told yourself can now be rewritten. This is not quick. This is not easy. The mind resists change. Attachment to identity is powerful. The ego protests. The social self lobbies. But in the silence of observation, a new possibility emerges. You start noticing the triggers, the unconscious motivations, the inherited fears, the borrowed desires. And with noticing comes choice. Choice is rare. Choice is freedom. Choice is the subtle act of reclaiming reality from the mind's construction. And slowly, the observer begins to separate from the observed. The mask begins to feel like a mask again. Not identity, not truth, just a layer. One you can now examine, and perhaps one you can finally remove. The first step is noticing. Simply observing the patterns that have shaped you. Without judgment, without resistance. You see how your personality was crafted? How your reactions were conditioned? How the stories you tell yourself created invisible walls? Awareness itself begins to loosen the grip of these walls. Every time you pause, every time you reflect, every time you question the narrative, you reclaim a small piece of autonomy. The mask that once felt permanent now feels temporary. The roles you once played now feel like choices, not necessities. And in that space, something extraordinary emerges. The authentic self. Not the identity dictated by childhood, not the reflection crafted for others, not the subconscious survival system, but the raw, unfiltered awareness. It does not shout, it does not demand attention. It does not cling to labels. It simply exists, observing, responding, creating. You realize the power of separation, between the observer and the observed, between the mask and the mind, between the story you were told, and the truth you can now write. Freedom is subtle. It is not loud or dramatic. It is a quiet knowing, a presence that does not need validation, a grounded self that can witness fear without reacting. Every choice you make now, every emotion you feel, every interaction you have, is filtered through awareness, not unconscious repetition. You no longer live as a product of borrowed experiences. You live as the architect of your own mind. You navigate relationships not to survive, but to connect. Authentically, the illusion of identity collapses. And in the rubble, the authentic self rises, quiet, potent, whole. The mask may remain, but it no longer defines you. It is now a tool, a layer you can choose to wear or remove. And in that choice, in that awareness, you discover what it truly means to be yourself. Unbound, live. Free, this is the journey of the mind, the reconstruction of self, and the liberation from the story you were told. You are not the mask. You are not the reflection. You are the consciousness that observes, and in observing, you are finally real.